All right, welcome into another edition of Carps Corner, maybe Carpenter's Corner. We'll workshop that, try to figure some things out. But excited to kind of talk at the midweek show here, dive into some Wisconsin stories, listen to a little bit of what Ryan Day ultimately has to say about this Wisconsin Badgers team. And then we'll get in the mailbag, answer some of your questions, and I'll tell some great Wisconsin Badger stories as well. I want to start out with this. I've talked about night games a lot. What I think constitutes as a game that deserves to be a night game and what doesn't. Toledo, probably not a night game. Arkansas State, probably not a night game. Those should be noon games. Rutgers, nice noon game. Maryland, noon or 3:30. Michigan State, 3:30 night, depending on how good they are. Penn State, usually a night game. Northwestern, up there on the road, they're going to make it a night. Usually here, we're going to make it at noon. And I get all that. So Ryan Day talked about, and this is the one thing, for recruiting, night games are better. For coaches, noon games are better. Why? Well, you get done with it, you get after it, you go home, you get to enjoy a day with your family, get a jump start on next week's game planning. There's so many positives to a noon game as far as enjoying the evening. But the night game allows you to enjoy the evening while you're playing in it. You just feel like a wrung out sponge the next day when ultimately you have to wake up and start preparing again. So Ryan Day talked about this. Said noon games, love them. Recruiting or noon games, love them. Family get a jump, or get coaches get a jump on things, enjoy times with the family. But night games, that's you get recruits in, and he's like, Buckeye Nation gets to spend all day preparing for the game, just like the coaches. And so that's good stuff. Because you see that and you're like, man, he gets it. He understands how awesome the recruiting or awesome the tailgating is at Ohio State, how that feeds into recruiting. You get everybody there. You have a nice weather situation. Everybody gets to explore and experience what goes on around the shoe. Talked a little bit about Wisconsin's identity, and everybody knows what Wisconsin's about. Running the football. We're going to play aggressive defense. There's some play action passes. It's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a physical football game. And that's the way it's been with Ohio State, Wisconsin. I'll tell some of the stories about that here before too long. But Jim Leonard's there. You know he's going to have an aggressive defense. He played there. He gets it. He understands it. They have 7 interceptions. I think they're leading the Big Ten, leading the nation, or near the top in the nation with that. A lot of TFLs, but not from their defensive linemen, from their linebackers. They like to get after it up front, but their identity is the same. Whether it's been Barry Alvarez, whether it's been Brett Bielema, whether it's Paul Christ, whoever, you're going to run the football. And that's what leads to those physical games. And for Ohio State, that's been a defensive-based team, maybe not as much recently, but for a long time, you take pride in the silver bullet defense. It's a big deal. So you want to come in and stop these elite running games that they bring in here. The Ron Danes, the Jonathan Taylors, the Bennetts, all these guys that have rolled through over the years. You want to make sure you can ultimately line up and stop them. And so that is the Wisconsin identity, what it has been and what it most likely always will be, because they know what they are. They understand it. They have big offensive linemen. They bring in some skill guys. But what's different about the Wisconsin team this year is I don't think they have those elite guys on the edge. I don't know if they have those elite offensive linemen that are going to be first and second round draft picks. They're good and they're physical. And we'll talk about the spread, and I'll make my prediction in the next show about what I think the ultimate score will be. But they don't necessarily have those elite high-end guys like they've had for so many years. So I think this Wisconsin team, and you saw that when they lost to Washington State, but I think this Wisconsin team is good, but they're not great. And I don't even know if they're the class necessarily of the Big Ten West at this point. Like I said, we'll get in the mailbag here in a minute. I want to tell some stories. We got some Ryan Day sound we're going to get to, but I want to throw this up here first. And this is Dallas Gant, Toledo native, played at Ohio State, transferred to Toledo his final season, played up there. And this is a picture post-game. You got Mickey Marotti right there, arm in arm with Dallas Gant and a lot of his former teammates. And this is what the brotherhood is all about. My boy Jeremy Birmingham took this picture, and he understood how big and how important it ultimately was. And then when you talk about this, these are guys that have trained together, they've grinded together, they've worked together, they've laughed together, cried together, they've experienced this full gamut of emotions. And so even when someone leaves, goes somewhere else, if you've been there long enough, man, you've been around these guys, you understand it. It's no different with Joe Burrow. Went to LSU, you saw him come back. Everybody loved him. Own the room. So Dallas Gant leaves, goes somewhere else and plays. Everybody wishes him the best. No one wanted to see Toledo upset Ohio State, but they wanted to, after the game, give their brother a hug, come on in, pull it in, get the picture, and make sure that they know how much they appreciate him. So we got some Ryan Day sound here. Some of what the coaches said. So first comment we're going to have, you're going to be on the Jim Leonhard defense and what his thoughts are on how impressive that can be and how tough it can be to go against.
Jim Leonhard does a really good job of changing up the looks, but he gets them to play really hard. They're tough. They're big. They're strong. They're sound, and they have really good players. So year in and year out, Wisconsin's defense has been one of the best in the conference and one of the best in the country. And it starts with stopping the run, and it starts with the physicality up front. I think fundamentally with their pad level and their hands, they do as good a job anybody in the conference and in the country. So we're going to have to be physical this week in practice and understand that in order to win this game on offense, we have to be able to run the football.
So I heard a couple things in there. You're going to talk about how multiple it was. They're going to move around up front. It's going to be tough to block. It's going to be tough to identify rushers, who's coming, who's not. It'll be a challenge for the offensive line. It's going to be a challenge for CJ Stroud on the back end, a challenge for Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Dallin Hayden, the backs of who to pick up, receivers of knowing what their coverage is. So that's a big piece of it. Talk about being physical. They want to stop the run, how much they ultimately have to run the football to have success. So those things are all paramount. And Jim Leonhard understands that. You see a lot of Rex Ryan influence on his defense, going to bring some pressure early in the downs, or early in the drives, trying to get you off track. And then ultimately on third down, get super exotic. But Jim Leonhard is a pressure-based defensive coordinator. He wants to mix things up on the back end and try and confuse you. So Ryan Day is saying, hey, you know what? To be able to have success against this team and everything that they want to do, we have to line up and be able to run the football. Now, with running the football, get varieties and formations, personnel groupings. Everybody knows about the receivers at Ohio State. You know about the running backs. But what I think you're beginning to learn this year is about the tight ends, about my guy, Cade Stover, about my man, G. Scott. You know, what they're able to do. Mitch Rossi, his versatility, H-back, fullback, little tight end. And so what those guys can do and what they can bring to the table, you throw another, throw an extra tackle in there. You can get real exotic with that. And so listen to what Ryan has to say about the tight end position, getting them involved.
That's something that we've been working on hard, and it was good to see the ball head their way in this game. Sometimes you call things that you have designed a certain way, and the coverage dictates that the ball goes in another direction. But good to see the ball go Cade's way this weekend. Good to see Mitch get in the end zone. You know, G. Scott got out there and got some meaningful snaps too, and ball didn't go his way a couple times, but it will. You know, those guys are weapons for us because of the versatility that they bring to the table. And, you know, that's been one of the blessings that we've had in the first couple games, and that we didn't have Julian or Jackson, is we're able to work on some of these packages that we think can be a strength for us moving forward.
So what you're hearing there, talking about the athleticism of Cade Stover, what he brings to the table, the versatility of Mitch Rossi and what he can bring there. And then how the perseverance of G. Scott, how he's transformed his body, how he's dedicated himself. And, you know, you dial up plays to try to get some of these guys involved. You do it for everybody, but the coverage dictates where the ball goes. So Cade has shown what he's able to do. You get the handoff to Mitch Rossi. You're trying to get G. Scott involved. And I think G. Scott, you're ultimately going to see what he can do here. It's been a long, tough road, but G is going to persevere. And you hear the encouragement and the understanding of Ryan buying in to what he's ultimately able to do and how he's going to be able to help this team in the near future and in the longer term future. Because when you have guys like that, Mitch, Cade, and G, like those guys give you some options. You got Royer you can throw in there as well. Like he can do some stuff. And so you get all these healthy on the same page. There's a chance to ultimately have success. Now, the last piece, the question that people always ask about, CJ running the football. When's he going to do it? Are you designing it? He's an athlete. Can he do this? Does he want to do it? Is he willing? Let's hear what Ryan has to say.
This year in the first 3 games, we had a run where he read the end and made 5-6 yards. He actually scrambled and got us to third and manageable. But then you've also seen him escape and extend plays. So he's worked hard in his movement. He's gotten bigger and stronger. So that's something that defenses are going to have to consider.
So going to build some design runs for him. A little bit there. Some of that here and there. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay. Have some designed runs. Give you that extra hat, extra blocker to change the math to run the football. But what I think he's talking more about is the good decision making. You don't need to run it every play. You don't need to run it 5 times a game. Heck, maybe you run it once, maybe you run it 3 times, maybe you don't run it at all, but it's on film. And so when you get man coverage for CJ Stroud and you have a 2nd and 10, you have a chance to go slide and pick up 7 yards when everybody's covered and they're playing man to man and running out, go take it. You don't have to take a hit. On 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, you can go pick up the first down, slide out, run out of bounds, do it. You see guys like Aaron Rodgers do it, Russell Wilson do it, Mahomes, all these guys. They go take the free yards when they're available. And I think that's part of the maturation process. CJ, as he said, and Ryan's talked a lot about this, has dedicated himself to the weight room. Wasn't in great shape last year. And most quarterbacks, they're not big weight room guys. But you saw a transformation in his body. Dedicated himself to lifting, his diet, his physique. He looks a lot better, a lot firmer this year. And so I think you're going to begin to see that in games that matter, in big situations, he'll be able to do that. Now, got a couple Wisconsin stories for you. First, 2002, we go up there. And we're sitting here and it's talking all week. And I didn't know anything about this, the rivalry. So C. Grant gets up. C. Grant came in. He was a redshirt senior my freshman year. He was a red shirt in 98. So he was there for a Big Ten title, a Sugar Bowl victory, saw all the laws, coaches getting fired, comes back, finishes his career with a national championship and a Big Ten title and a victory over Michigan. So he saw it on both ends. Middle, there's laws. And they had these battles with Wisconsin back and forth. So C gets up there talking about, hey, we're going to go up there. It's going to be tough. It's going to be physical. We're going to whip their butt. We're going to get after them, using much more colorful language. And when we get done, we're dancing on the W. It's up in Madison. I'm like, wow, like Tress is here. And it's like, that's not what we're all about. And I come to find out, like, you know what? A couple years ago, we went up there. We danced on the W after they won. They didn't like it. They got in a fight. They came to Ohio State, beat Ohio State. They danced on the block O. He's like, now it's time to return the favor. And man, it was crazy. It's a wild game, intense, playing on the old school turf. We get the victory, ultimately go on to win a national championship. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, this is one of the best environments I've ever played in. I mean, I'm wide-eyed. I got like probably 10 snaps in that game. And Camp Randall's just all on you. They're sitting there playing little jump around, and between the 3rd and 4th quarter, it's rocking. It's an unbelievable environment. They're in Penn State, best 2 road environments in the Big Ten. And then my sophomore year, we go back up there, kind of a quirky schedule situation, 2 years on the road. We're warming up, 60 degrees, beautiful weather. Go in, ready to go, get ready to go, come back out to play the game. And it is like cold wind blew in, temperature dropped 20 degrees, raining, crazy, fans are all over you. I said, it's the first time I've actually got Coke, a drink dumped on me. You're walking out. I'm looking at this lady's pouring her drink through the cup at me, yelling obscenities. We get out there and we're playing in the game. I'm playing a lot on the sophomore. And that's the game Rob Reynolds, my man, choked out Jim Sorgi and made a sound that I've never heard another human make under the pile. Like, I didn't know what the heck was going on. But later in the game, playing Sam linebacker, I'm running out, and I can't remember exactly the down and distance situation, but I've got the flat. We have a box coverage. I'm running out, and they've got Lee Evans, who's a native, I believe, of Bedford, maybe. He's a Cleveland guy. Really good receiver. In Wisconsin, when they were rolling, they had him and Chris Chambers back-to-back. 2 Cleveland guys up there, first-round receivers, Pro Bowlers, good players. And I'm running. I've got the flat. Chris Gamble had been playing defense for a couple weeks. Knew what he was supposed to do, understood it, but like technique-wise, like he hadn't been playing. He had been practicing a lot. And they go run a flat with Lee Evans. And I'm going to cut it. That's my job. Maybe he gets 5 yards, I tackle him. Chris is over the top. And I'm running, and I'll never forget. I watched Lee turn, flash his hands. I look up. I see Chris driving, and then Lee ducks down and turns. I'm thinking, oh, no. And sure enough, pump fake, over the top, touchdown. We ended up losing the game, and that's a big piece of it. And Chris Gamble made a lot of plays for us. A lot of plays for us. He started off at wide receiver. That next year he'll get full-time corner. I guess by that time he was a full-time cornerback. He was going to try to make a play, and I get it. But it was something that stuck in my mind for so long. And then my junior year, we lose to him down in the horseshoe. It's the only team in the Big Ten I have a losing record against. We were 1-2. And for that, like the Wisconsin Badgers are a big time rival to me, and they stick in my craw. And that's tough. So we got all that done. We got some stories. We listened to Ryan Day. Now we got the mailbag coming up. So here we go. Let's take a look. Let's dive in. Question 1. What's the biggest improvement you've seen through 3 weeks of play in the Buckeyes defense compared to last year? Number 1, tackling. Far better tackling this year than they've had the last couple of years. What you get, what you incentivize. All right. You are what you emphasize. And that is what Ohio State is doing. They've worked on tackling a lot. You see the increase in it. They've got speed. They have confidence. They're a much more aggressive defense, but it all comes down to tackling. If you can't get guys on the ground, I don't care how good the scheme is, and I don't care how fast everybody is. Number 1, you have to get there, and you have to have guys that are unblocked. But number 2 and 3 are you ultimately have to have people there that can go make the play and get someone to the ground. And this Ohio State team, far better at tackling this year than they've been in years past. Next question. How does the much improved Ohio State defense continue to improve and tighten up against big plays while still staying aggressive? So there's a couple things. Big plays happen, like I said. Number 1, because of bus. If you don't know what you're doing. Number 2, because of a missed tackle. Or 3, because of a disparity in athleticism or technique. So bus, like knowing what you're doing. You got to continue to lock that in and make sure there's not communication issues. And as the guys get more familiar with the scheme, that's going to continue to occur. They're going to understand more what's going on the defensive side of the ball. You see things more. You're more familiar with the people you're playing around. So that'll help. Technique-wise, bus-wise, like they're continuing to get better. They're continuing to improve with that and understanding it. And I already addressed the missed tackles. They don't have those missed tackles. So staying aggressive and understanding when to call your shots. Jim Knowles gets all that. He is an incredibly smart defensive coordinator and knows how to pick his spots at just the right time. Biggest prankster in the Ohio State linebacking locker room when I was there, or linebacker meeting room when I was there. This isn't like me tooting my own horn, but I would say that I was by far probably the biggest prankster. I mean, AJ would play along, Schlegs would play along. Wilhelm, when I was younger, would get in on it, C. Grant, Rob Reynolds. But, through my tenure, I was the one drawing most of the pictures on the board, screwing around. Fred Puggich would do some of it as well. But, I mean, I was really one of the guys that spearheaded a lot of the shenanigans and nonsense that are there. Do I think USC is legit? They beat Stanford. They beat Fresno. They have a couple of okay wins against teams that are decent. They look good. Their offenses looked really impressive. Defense, there's some work to do. Now they're playing Oregon State, and I believe it's about a 7-point spread this weekend. And that is going to tell you a lot this weekend because, the Beavers typically aren't that good, but this year they've been playing some good football. And you look back, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, they used to be a thorn in the side of the USC Trojans. So we'll see this week. You'll find out a lot more about a lot of teams this week as they enter conference play, because not all non-conference schedules are created equal. So this week, USC, they're going to be playing Oregon State, who, like I said, typically hasn't been a stalwart in the Pac-12, but we'll find out more this week. Question about Court Williams. Haven't seen a lot of snaps. Is it a fit issue? Situational player? Will we see him more against the Badger run game? Who do you take off the field to add him? And so this is the thing. When you run a 4-2-5, and even sometimes it looks like a 3-3-5, but you have 5 defensive backs on the field primarily, and that's a function of playing against a lot of offenses that run 3 wide receiver sets. And so Tanner McAllister is that extra safety now that would have been a linebacker. And you saw Cam Martinez fill for him last week. Now, Court Williams is a big dude. I think Court ultimately could grow into being a linebacker. Against a team like Wisconsin, I have a tendency to believe that Ohio State might go a little bigger and put together like a big safety package, because you can put Court Williams in there and he can be that extra linebackerish player because he weighs over 220 pounds. He's a physical guy. He can come downhill. And it's not that he's not a fit for the scheme. It's just every week things are changing. It's malleable. And like I said, he might be a better in the box player now at this point with his size and how athletic he is. He can move around great, but you'd much rather have him on a tight end at this point and being able to fit the run than you would probably on the back end. And that's just a function of body type. And so, Court's battled injuries throughout his career. Hopefully he's going to be healthy and ready to go, because I think this could be a big week for him to ultimately come in and help out against Wisconsin. Little Bengals question. How likely is it for the Bengals to get it together and make the playoffs? I think they can. They've got to get their offensive line fixed. And Joe Burrow has to start getting rid of the football more. They've got to get the running game going. And Zach Taylor has to have better control and understanding of the holistic game and calling of the game and how things fit. The Bengals offensive line is much improved. They've spent a lot of money on it in the offseason. They didn't draft guys. They brought in free agents, guys like Lyle Collins, who big time money guys to play right tackle. They got Jonah Williams at left tackle. They should be better than this. So they've got to get that figured out. Part of it is a little bit Joe Burrow's got to get rid of the football. Do the Buckeyes cover the 19-point spread? That's a big number. And I'll give my score in the next show. 19's a lot. I liked it a lot more at 16.5. Under 17, I felt good. You get 17, 17.5. Now all of a sudden it's 3 scores. That's when it gets a little nerve-wracking for me. And not that I don't think they'll cover it, but putting soft earned dollars on it, that's a whole nother deal. It's a horse of a different color. So 19, I don't like it. If you could have got it at 16.5, love that pick. 19, little tough. Like I said, I'll give my score prediction in the next show. And do I think, lastly, the secondary is an area of concern? I don't believe that it is. There's some things they need to improve a little bit. You saw some big plays last week. There was some miscommunication. Denzel Burke needs to get going and kind of reclaim his form from last year. He has it in there. This hasn't been his best. And like I said, DBs go through slumps a little bit. They're a little bit like pitchers, a little bit like hitters in baseball. Like you've got to, sometimes some bad things happen, they snowball. As soon as you have a couple positive plays, things start working out. So there's that. I hopefully get Josh Proctor, Tanner McAllister back healthy. Cam Martinez filled in, played really well, I thought. And we know what we have with Lathan Ransom. He's a very good player as well. Very sure and solid tackler. I think you're going to continue to see this defense improve. You got to remember, it's the first year in the system. So each passing game, you're making these exponential jumps just due to the fact you haven't been in game situations in this system before this season. So going from 1 game to 2 games, you're doubling your reps. Going from 2 games to 3, you're adding 50%. Going from 3 games to 4, you're adding 33% more playing time in this system in game situations. So you're going to continue to make these big jumps in improvement when you have conscientious guys and coaches that are on it. So that's fantastic. That ends, though, this edition of Carps Corner. Maybe we'll start calling this a full Carpenter's Corner. I don't know. We'll see how it flows, see what happens. Thank you for subscribing. Continue to lock in, subscribe, share it, comment, ask the questions you want. I will answer them for you. And we got another pregame show coming up on Friday. We'll be excited as the Buckeyes take on the Wisconsin Badgers. And until then, we'll see you soon.